The notification that shattered Kate's world wasn't a text message or a missed call. It was a single glistening photo on a social media app. There he was, her husband, Luca, the man who'd kissed her pregnant belly just that morning, his hand now wrapped around the waist of a woman whose face was adored by millions. He'd left her for an influencer, but what he and his new muse didn't know, as they curated their perfect life on the world's hottest new app, was that the woman they'd discarded was about to become the one who owned their entire reality. This isn't a story about heartbreak. It's a story about what happens when a woman's pain is forged into power. The silence in their San Francisco apartment was the first thing that felt wrong. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was a hollow and echoing void where the comfortable hum of a shared life used to be. Kate, 7 months pregnant and feeling every bit of it, lowered herself onto the plush grey sofa, her hand instinctively resting on the taut drum of her stomach. Luca was on a business trip, a last-minute all-important conference in Miami for the design firm he worked for. He'd been so apologetic, so full of promises to make it up to her, his kisses feeling urgent and distracted. Kate and Luca had been the picture of modern success. She was a brilliant data analyst for a major tech firm, before going on early maternity leave, a woman who saw the world in patterns and probabilities. He was the charming, handsome graphic designer, the dreamer to her pragmatist. They'd met at a cafe, a classic story of him sketching her on a napkin. Their love felt like a perfectly designed user experience, intuitive, beautiful, and seamless, until it wasn't. The past 6 months, something had shifted. Luca had become obsessed with a new social media platform called Aura. It was more than just filters. Aura used a sophisticated AI to create entire lifestyle templates. Users could upload a simple photo, and the app would transform it into a scene of impossible glamour. A dreary Tuesday morning could look like a sun-drenched brunch in Santorini. A selfie in a drab apartment could become a candid laugh in a Parisian loft. It was the ultimate engine of curated fantasy, and its biggest star was an influencer named Chloe Vance. Chloe was Aura's queen. With 15 million followers, her life was a cascade of perfect moments, each one processed through Aura's signature glow. She was perpetually on vacation, perpetually draped in designer clothes, perpetually in love with the camera. Luca was mesmerized. At first it was professional admiration. "Look at her branding aims," he'd say, scrolling endlessly through her feed. "She's not just a person. She's a product. It's genius." Soon his admiration soured into a strange, distant longing. He started using Aura for his own design portfolio, trying to capture that same elusive gloss. He was on his phone constantly, his thumb stroking the screen as if trying to absorb Chloe's life through the glass. When Kate would gently ask him to be present, he'd snap, "This is my work, Kate. It's about staying relevant." The business trip to Miami was the culmination of this growing distance. He'd packed in a hurry, his movements jerky and avoidant. Now the silence he'd left behind felt heavy with unspoken words. Kate tried to busy herself folding and refolding tiny onesies in the nursery, the scent of fresh paint and new furniture doing little to soothe her unease. The crib, a sleek Scandinavian design Luca had insisted on, stood half-assembled in the corner, a monument to his unfinished promises. That evening, seeking a mindless distraction, she opened Instagram. It was a mistake. Her feed, usually a mix of friends' babies and home decor, was now dominated by Chloe Vance. Luca, in his obsession, had engaged with so much of her content that the algorithm had decided Kate must be a fan too. She was about to scroll past when a new post from Chloe, uploaded just 1 hour ago, froze the blood in her veins. It was a picture, but it was rendered through Aura to look like a still from a romantic film. Chloe Vance, stunning in a white linen dress, was laughing, her head thrown back. Her arm was linked with a man whose back was mostly to the camera, but Kate didn't need to see his face. She knew the line of his shoulders, the way his dark hair curled at the nape of his neck, the familiar grey t-shirt she had bought him. They were standing on a balcony overlooking the ocean, the sunset casting them in hues of orange and pink. The location tag was simple: South Beach, Miami. The caption, however, was the killing blow. Sometimes you have to break the rules to find your true north. So grateful for this unexpected chapter. But it wasn't the caption that made Kate drop her phone. It was the top comment liked by thousands from a verified account. Luca's account. It read, "My true north is you." The world didn't shatter. It simply dissolved. The walls of the apartment seemed to melt away. The floor fell from beneath her, and the only thing holding her together was the child kicking insistently in her womb. For a moment she couldn't breathe. It was a physical pain, a crushing weight on her chest that felt like a heart attack. She was a data analyst. She dealt in facts, in verifiable truths. This was a data point for which she had no model. She picked up her phone with a trembling hand. She clicked on Luca's profile. He had posted a new picture too, also through Aura. It was him smiling with the same ocean background. The caption, "Starting over." He had untagged himself from all of their old photos together. Years of their life, their wedding, their travels, their pregnancy announcement, all gone. In their place was this single glossy image of his new beginning. She dialed his number. It went straight to voicemail. His familiar, cheerful voice filled the silent apartment. "Hey, you've reached Luca. Leave a message." She didn't leave one. She sent a text, her fingers clumsy and numb. "Miami." The reply came back almost instantly, a single cowardly sentence that bifurcated her life into a before and an after. "I'm sorry, Kate. I'm in love with her. I'm not coming home." There was no explanation, no phone call, just a text message as impersonal as a shipping notification. The man she had built a life with, the man who was the father of her unborn child, had erased her for a woman he knew only through a screen. The next few days were a blur of unimaginable pain. She called his parents, who were horrified, but unsurprised. "He's always been chasing something." "Kate," his mother had wept over the phone, "we just never thought he'd do this to you." His friends stopped answering her calls, clearly having chosen a side. The half-assembled crib became an object of torment. Every corner of the apartment held a ghost. A week later, a sterile, legal-looking envelope arrived. Inside were divorce papers already signed by Luca, delivered by a courier. He was waiving his rights to the apartment, which was in her name, and making a single insulting offer of a lump sum payment. It was a clean break, a transaction. He was closing a business deal, not ending a marriage. The true torture, however, was Aura. She couldn't look away. It was a form of self-flagellation. Every day, Luca and Chloe posted their new life. They called themselves #Lio. They documented everything through the app's romanticized lens: their first brunch, as an official couple holding hands on the beach, Luca surprising Chloe with a puppy. It was a fire hose of manufactured bliss, and the world was drinking it in. Their follower counts exploded. They were the internet's new favorite couple, praised for their bravery and authenticity. Comments poured in by the thousands. So happy you found real love. You two are glowing. Forget the haters, live your truth. Kate was the hater. The forgotten, pregnant, inconvenient truth. She read articles about them in online celebrity magazines. One headline read, "The Knew-It Couple, How Luca Reynolds Left a Toxic Situation to Find True Love with Chloe Vance." Toxic. The word was a knife. In an interview, Chloe spoke vaguely about Luca's past. He was in a relationship that was holding him back creatively and emotionally, she said, her voice dripping with faux sympathy. He needed to be with someone who understood the pressures of living a public life, someone who was on his level. It was a hard decision, but it was for his own well-being. Luca in the same article was quoted as saying, "I realized I was living a life based on someone else's expectations. I was suffocating. Chloe, she sees me. The real me." Kate looked down at her swollen belly, at the stretch marks mapping her skin, at the life she was growing inside her. The life he had co-created and then abandoned. He wasn't suffocating. He was a coward who had mistaken the validation of strangers for love and the glow of an AI filter for happiness. It was during one of these late-night doom-scrolling sessions, tears streaming down her face as she looked at a picture of Luca and Chloe kissing in front of the Eiffel Tower, a trip she and Luca had been planning for their baby moon, that something inside her finally snapped. The grief, the humiliation, the incandescent rage, it all coalesced into a single sharp point of clarity. He thought he had seen the real her. He hadn't. He had only seen the wife, the partner, the accommodating other half. He had never seen the woman who had put herself through grad school, the analyst who could find the narrative in a sea of chaotic data, the survivor who had pulled herself out of poverty after her parents' death. He had left her for a fantasy, a beautiful, shallow, AI-generated fantasy. And the entire world was cheering them on, all because of an app. The app. Aura. Kate wiped her tears. Her hand, which had been resting on her stomach, balled into a fist. They had used Aura to build their perfect world on the ashes of hers. They thought they were the stars of the show. An idea cold and brilliant and terrifying began to form in the analytical part of her brain, the part that saw patterns, the part that understood systems. An idea that had nothing to do with heartbreak and everything to do with power. She wouldn't just delete the app. She wouldn't just block them. That was their game, their world. She was going to change the world itself. She was going to buy it. The decision, once it crystallized, was like a splash of ice water. The fog of grief began to recede, replaced by a chilling, razor-sharp focus. For weeks, Kate had been a passenger in her own life, carried along by tides of sorrow and betrayal. Now she was grabbing the wheel. But the thought was on its face insane. Buy Aura. The app was a cultural phenomenon. It was likely worth hundreds of millions, if not billions. She was a single, unemployed mother-to-be living off savings. The absurdity of it almost made her laugh, a raw, humorless sound that startled her in the quiet apartment. But the thought wouldn't leave. It burrowed into her mind and set up camp. It was the only thing that felt like a path forward, a way to reclaim the narrative that had been stolen from her. Her first move was practical. She scheduled an emergency appointment with her obstetrician. If she was going to declare war, she needed to know her own supply lines were secure. The baby had to be okay. In the sterile examination room, the cool gel on her belly, she held her breath. Then the rhythmic thump, thump, thump of a tiny, ferocious heartbeat filled the room. Strong, steady, 150 beats per minute. "Everything looks perfect, Kate," her doctor. A kind woman named Dr. Chen said with a warm smile, "This little one is a fighter." Lying there, listening to the sound of her child's heart, Kate made a silent promise. "I will fight for you. I will not let you be born into a story where your mother was a victim." That resolve carried her home. She sat at her sleek iMac, the one Luca had always complained was too corporate for their apartment, and began to work. Her fingers, which had grown clumsy with grief, now flew across the keyboard with their old confidence. She wasn't just a heartbroken ex-wife anymore. She was Kate Reed, data analyst, and she was going to do what she did best: research. She started not with Aura, but with her own finances. She pulled up her accounts, her savings, her 401k. It was a respectable amount, enough to live on for a year or two, if she was careful, but not nearly enough to buy a lemonade stand, let alone a tech giant. The reality of her situation was stark. The plan was impossible. Defeated, she opened the digital folder labeled Personal Documents. It was a morbidly organized collection of her life, her birth certificate, her degree, her marriage license, now a worthless piece of paper. And in a subfolder titled Eleanor, there was her grandmother's will. Eleanor Reed had been the true north of Kate's life. A whip-smart, no-nonsense woman who had raised Kate after her parents died in a car crash when she was 10. Eleanor wasn't a woman of great wealth, but she was savvy. A high school math teacher, she had a preternatural gift for understanding the stock market. "It's just patterns, sweetheart," she'd say. "Human fear and human greed written in numbers." When Eleanor passed away 2 years ago, she had left Kate her house, which Kate had sold to buy the San Francisco apartment, and her stock portfolio. The portfolio was managed by a boutique firm in Boston, and Eleanor had left strict instructions in her will. "To my dearest Kate," the letter read, "this is not for frivolity. This is for a foundation. For a moment, when you need to build something for yourself on your own terms. Do not touch it until you know with every fiber of your being that the time is right." Kate had respected her grandmother's wishes. She'd glanced at the portfolio statements when they arrived, saw that it was mostly invested in a single obscure tech company called Althea Innovations, and filed them away. It was her nest egg for a distant hypothetical future. With a sense of dread and curiosity, she logged into the portfolio management portal for the first time. She braced herself for a modest sum, maybe $100,000 if she was lucky. The number that loaded on the screen made her gasp. $14,732,841.9. She stared, blinking. It had to be a mistake, a glitch, a typo. She refreshed the page. The number remained fluctuating by a few dollars as the market ticked. She quickly searched for Althea Innovations. The company wasn't obscure anymore. Althea specialized in AI-driven data processing and machine learning algorithms. 6 months ago, they had signed a massive exclusive contract with the Department of Defense, and their stock had skyrocketed by over 2,000%. Eleanor Reed, the quiet math teacher, had seen a pattern no one else did. She had invested her life savings into a small company she believed in, and her bet had paid off on a scale that was almost incomprehensible. Kate felt a wave of dizziness. $14 million. It was a life-altering, world-bending amount of money. Her grandmother's legacy wasn't just a safety net. It was a catapult. The impossible, insane idea of buying Aura suddenly felt plausible. Her research shifted gears. Now, with the specter of capital behind her, she wasn't just fantasizing. She was conducting due diligence. She dove into Aura. Not the front-end consumer-facing app, but the business behind it. The parent company was called Elysian Labs, Inc. It was founded 2 years ago by a trio of Stanford graduates. They had created the brilliant core technology, the AI, that made Aura so addictive. She spent days digging using her analyst skills to scrape public records, tech journals, and financial news archives. She found interviews with the founders where they boasted about user growth and engagement metrics. But Kate knew that vanity metrics often hid ugly truths. She looked deeper, searching for financial statements, for SEC filings, for any hint of their actual business health. What she found was a classic Silicon Valley story. Elysian Labs had a revolutionary product, but zero business acumen. They had burned through their seed funding and Series A funding at an alarming rate, spending lavishly on marketing and perks to attract talent. They had prioritized growth over profit, assuming they could secure a massive Series B round of funding to keep the lights on. But the tech market had cooled in the last quarter. Investors were getting skittish, demanding clear paths to profitability. According to an article in a niche tech business journal, Elysian Labs' proposed Series B funding round had just fallen through. The investors had backed out, citing concerns about the company's high burn rate and lack of a sustainable revenue model beyond the vague promise of future ad sales. Elysian Labs was bleeding money. They were a rocket ship that was running out of fuel, hurtling towards a crash. To the public, to Luca and Chloe, Aura was a glittering success. But Kate, looking at the data, saw the truth. Aura was a damsel in distress, desperately in need of a savior. This was her opening. She picked up the phone and called the number on her grandmother's portfolio statement. A crisp, professional voice answered. "Thorne and Associates, Marcus Thorne speaking." "Mr. Thorne," Kate said, her own voice steady and clear, a stark contrast to the trembling woman she had been a week ago. "My name is Kate Reed. I'm Eleanor Reed's granddaughter. I believe you manage her portfolio." "Kate, of course. My deepest condolences again on your grandmother's passing. She was a remarkable woman," Marcus said warmly. "I was wondering when I might hear from you. That Althea stock has done, well, it's done wonders." "Yes," Kate said, cutting to the chase. "It has, and I want to liquidate a significant portion of it. I have an acquisition target in mind." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "An acquisition target?" Marcus sounded intrigued. His professional curiosity piqued. "This is unexpected. May I ask what company you're looking at?" Kate took a deep breath. "Elysian Labs, the company that owns the app Aura." The silence on the other end was longer this time. Kate could almost hear the gears turning in his head, the surprise, the calculation, the assessment of her sanity. "Well," Marcus finally said, a new note of respect in his voice. "That is a bold move, Miss Reed. A very bold move indeed. Tell me everything." For the next hour, Kate laid out her research. She talked about Elysian's burn rate, their failed funding round, their brilliant but mismanaged technology. She spoke not with emotion, but with the cold, hard logic of a seasoned analyst. She wasn't a woman scorned. She was an investor who had identified an undervalued asset with immense potential. Marcus was impressed. "Your grandmother was a shrewd woman," he said. "It appears she passed that trait on to you. An all-cash offer to a company in their position would be incredibly tempting. They'd be able to pay off their debts, their initial investors would get a decent exit, and the founders would walk away with millions. It's a golden parachute when they're about to crash into the mountain." "Exactly," Kate said. "But it has to be completely anonymous. They cannot know who the buyer is. My name cannot appear anywhere." "That's standard practice for a hostile-style takeover, even a friendly one. We'll set up a shell corporation, a holding company. It will be completely firewalled. They will have no idea who is writing the check," Marcus assured her. "Kate, this is a predator's move. Are you ready for that?" Kate looked at the half-assembled crib in the corner of the room. She thought of Luca's comment on Chloe's photo. "My true north is you." She thought of the life growing inside her, the tiny, resilient heartbeat. "Mr. Thorne," she said, her voice like steel, "I have never been more ready in my life." The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in controlled chaos. Under the expert guidance of Marcus Thorne, Kate transformed from a private citizen into a silent, formidable corporate raider. Marcus, a seasoned veteran of Boston's cutthroat financial world, was invigorated by the challenge. He saw in Kate a reflection of her grandmother's quiet tenacity, and it was his honor to be her field marshal. They established a holding company, a deliberately nondescript entity named North Star Holdings, LLC. The irony was a private, bitter joke for Kate. Luca had found his true north in a fleeting fantasy. She would build an empire under hers. Marcus and his legal team handled the paperwork, creating a labyrinthine structure of ownership that made the ultimate beneficiary, Kate, utterly untraceable. While the lawyers built the fortress, Kate worked tirelessly from her apartment, which she now referred to as her war room. The nursery door was closed. The baby clothes were put away. Her focus was absolute. She and Marcus's team of analysts conducted a deep-dive valuation of Elysian Labs. They built financial models, projected user decline scenarios, and calculated the precise amount of debt the company was carrying. They discovered the situation was even more precarious than the news articles suggested. Elysian Labs had taken out a high-interest bridge loan to cover payroll just last month. They had 30 days to repay it, or they would be in default, which would trigger a cascade of legal and financial calamities. They were not just running out of fuel. The engines were on fire. "They're desperate," Marcus said during one of their daily calls. "Their backs are against the wall. The founders are probably at each other's throats, and their investors are screaming for their money back. This is the perfect time to strike." The strategy was simple and brutal, an all-cash offer that was just high enough to be an irresistible lifeline. It wasn't a generous offer that reflected Aura's cultural cachet, but a predator's price that reflected its dire financial reality. They would offer $35 million. $20 million would go to paying off their debts and early-stage investors, Marcus explained. The remaining $15 million would be split between the 3 founders, $5 million each, for a 30-year-old that's walk away and never work again money. It's an offer they can't refuse. Kate felt a pang of something complex, not guilt, but a heavy sense of consequence. She was about to irrevocably change the lives of dozens of employees of 3 young founders who had, despite their flaws, created something remarkable. But then she'd open Aura. She had to for market research, and she'd see them. Leo. Thriving. They were in Bali now. A post showed them on a swing overlooking a lush jungle, their bodies tanned, their smiles blinding. Luca had his hand on Chloe's flat stomach. The caption read, "Building our future one perfect moment at a time." The post had 2 million likes. Any flicker of doubt, Kate felt, was instantly extinguished by a wildfire of resolve. They were building their future on the wreckage of hers. The $35 million offer was not an act of aggression. It was an act of cosmic rebalancing. Through Marcus North Star, Holdings made its formal unsolicited offer to the board of Elysian Labs. The reaction was instantaneous. For 3 days, there was radio silence. Kate imagined the frantic meetings, the shouting matches, the sleepless nights for Elysian's CEO, a young man named Kevin Lynn. She could picture him staring at the offer on his screen, a deal from a ghost company that would solve all his problems, but would mean giving up his creation. On the 4th day, Marcus called. "They've blinked," he said, unable to hide the excitement in his voice. "They've hired an investment bank to represent them. They're ready to negotiate. Kevin Lynn is demanding to know who North Star Holdings is." "And what did you tell them?" Kate asked, her heart pounding. "I told them North Star is a private family fund with a deep interest in emerging AI technology, and that the principal values privacy above all else. I told them any attempt to uncover the owner's identity would result in the immediate withdrawal of the offer. They can have the money, or they can have their curiosity, not both." The negotiation was a swift and brutal affair, handled entirely by Marcus. Elysian Labs countered with $50 million. Marcus, on Kate's instruction, didn't budge. He simply resent the original offer with a note, "This offer is final and expires in 48 hours. It was a high-stakes game of chicken. Kate didn't sleep for those 2 days. She paced her apartment, her hand on her belly, feeling the baby kick as if sensing her agitation. This was it, the moment of truth. Was her analysis correct? Was their desperation greater than their pride? With 3 hours to go before the deadline, the acceptance came through. They had folded. Elysian Labs, the parent company of the cultural sensation Aura, had agreed to be acquired by North Star Holdings for $35 million. The moment the signed papers landed in her inbox, Kate didn't feel triumph. She felt a profound, unnerving calm. The world had tilted on its axis, and she was the one who had pushed it. She walked into the nursery and opened the door. The afternoon light streamed in, illuminating the half-built crib. She looked at it not as a symbol of abandonment, but as a project waiting to be completed. The deal closed a week later. The money, a figure so large it looked like a phone number, was transferred from her grandmother's legacy account. In return, a set of digital keys were handed over. Passwords, admin access, full unadulterated control of the entire Aura platform. She was in. Luca and Chloe, of course, knew nothing. They were in a different world, a world of likes and shares. They probably saw the news briefs in the tech journals. Struggling Elysian Labs, acquired by mystery firm North Star Holdings. They would have scrolled past it without a second thought, more concerned with their engagement metrics than with the dry realities of corporate acquisitions. They had no idea that the mystery firm was the woman they had so casually destroyed. For her first act as the new owner, Kate didn't log into the system from her laptop. She did it from her phone. She opened the Aura app, the same app that had been her tormentor. She navigated to the admin portal, a back door invisible to normal users, and entered the credentials Marcus had given her. A new screen loaded. It was the God view, the control panel, a dashboard showing real-time user activity server loads and revenue streams or lack thereof. And most importantly, it showed her the algorithm. The complex secret code that decided who got famous and who remained invisible. The code that had crowned Chloe Vance a queen. It was all there, laid bare before her. A series of weighted variables, virality score, engagement velocity, influencer tier priority. Chloe Vance, and by extension Luca Reynolds, were hard-coded at the top with a Tier 1 priority flag. The algorithm was designed to push their content to the top of everyone's feed, guaranteeing them millions of views whether their content was good or not. Their success wasn't just organic. It was manufactured by the system itself. Kate's finger hovered over the screen. She could delete their accounts. She could ban them from the platform. With a single tap, she could wipe them from the digital universe they held so dear. It would be so easy, so swift. But that was too simple. It was a warrior's move, not a strategist's. Deleting them would make them martyrs. They would go to other platforms, crying censorship, and their fame would only grow. No, revenge wasn't about a single satisfying blow. It was about a slow, deliberate, and undeniable demonstration of power. She wasn't going to ban them. She was going to make them irrelevant. With a cool precision, she navigated to their user profiles within the admin panel. She saw their priority flag. Influencer / tier priority. 1. She smiled a thin, cold smile. She selected the line of code. She didn't delete it. She just changed one single character. Influencer tier priority equals 0. She hit save. And just like that, the gods of the algorithm fell silent. The king and queen were now in the eyes of the machine that had made them just commoners. The effect was not immediate. An algorithm shift is not like flipping a switch. It's like changing the course of a river. For the first few days, nothing seemed different. Luca and Chloe, now living in a glass-walled rental in the Hollywood Hills, continued to post their aura-filtered fantasies. A trip to a vineyard in Napa, a candid moment of them laughing while making pasta a shot of Chloe meditating at sunrise. Kate watched not with the pained obsession of a victim, but with the detached interest of a scientist observing an experiment. She had the master dashboard open on her second monitor at all times. She could see every metric, every data point. And she began to notice the subtle changes. Their new posts were getting slightly fewer likes in the first hour. The comment velocity was down by 15%. Before, the Aura algorithm would have force-fed their content onto millions of For You pages. Now their content had to perform on its own merits to get seen. And their merits, stripped of their artificial algorithmic boost, were proving to be remarkably thin. A week later, Chloe posted a meticulously staged photo of herself in a bubble bath surrounded by candles. In the old Auraverse, this would have been an easy 1.5 million likes. Kate watched the numbers in real time. The post struggled to hit 400,000. The first crack appeared in the comments section. "Is it me, or is Chloe's content getting kinda boring?" read one highly liked comment. Another said, "I feel like I've seen this exact photo 100 times. Chloe, who meticulously curated her comments, deleted them. But more popped up. The tide of public opinion, no longer guided by Aura's heavy hand, was starting to turn. Luca and Chloe noticed the dip. Their response was predictable. They doubled down. Their content became more frantic, more desperate for attention. They staged a fake argument and a dramatic makeup on Instagram stories. They did a tell-all YouTube video about the pressures of fame. It came off as narcissistic and whiny. Their engagement dipped further. Kate, meanwhile, was doing more than just watching. She was learning. As the sole owner, she had access to every line of code, every developer note. She spent her days understanding the intricate architecture of the platform she now controlled. She saw its flaws, its vulnerabilities, but also its immense, untapped potential. The AI was brilliant. It was just being used for the shallowest purpose imaginable. She also started subtly changing other parts of the algorithm. She instructed the system to deprioritize overly processed fantasy life content. Instead, she tweaked the variables to favor photos and videos that were tagged with things like real life, no filter, hashed mental health journey, and authenticity. She implemented a small, almost invisible boost for accounts with fewer than 10,000 followers who were getting genuine, high-quality engagement. Slowly, the entire ecosystem of Aura began to change. The For You pages, once a homogeneous stream of influencer perfection, started to fill with more diverse, more relatable content. A young mother sharing her struggles with postpartum depression, a teacher posting funny, unedited videos from his classroom, an artist showing the messy, paint-splattered process behind her work. These new creators, the ones Kate's new algorithm favored, began to rise. Aura started to feel less like a magazine of impossible lives and more like a community. The tech press started noticing. Aura's surprising shift towards authenticity, read one headline. Is the influencer bubble finally popping on Aura, read another. The app's user growth, which had started to stagnate, ticked upward again. People were responding to the change. Kate's personal life was changing too. She had found a new obstetrician closer to her apartment, a kind, reassuring man named Dr. Ben Carter. He was warm and funny with laugh lines around his eyes. During a checkup, he noticed her exhausted expression. "Long day?" he asked as he measured the baby's heartbeat. "You could say that," Kate replied with a wry smile. "Just a lot of corporate restructuring." "Ah," he said, nodding sagely. "My sister's a CEO. I know that look. Don't forget to take care of the most important startup you're running." He gestured towards her belly. "This one's funding is entirely dependent on you." His genuine care was a balm on her still healing wounds. She found herself looking forward to her appointments, to their brief, easy conversations. It was a stark contrast to the transactional, performative nature of the world she was secretly manipulating. Ben saw her as Kate, a smart, tired, expectant mother. Not a victim, not a predator, just a person. The unraveling of ThatMade, meanwhile, was accelerating. Their numbers were in a free fall. Having built their entire brand on Aura, they had nowhere else to go. Their attempts to replicate their success on TikTok and Instagram fell flat. They were an Aura phenomenon, and their native environment had become hostile. Desperation led them to make a fatal error. They started buying followers, a cardinal sin in the influencer world. But Kate, the owner of the platform, could see it all. On her dashboard, she saw the sudden inorganic spike in their follower count, all from botted accounts in Southeast Asia. It was pathetic. She didn't even have to do anything. Other users savvy to these tactics noticed immediately. A tech blogger using an analytics tool published an expose titled, "Have Chloe Vance and Luca Reynolds Been Faking Their Fame?" The article went viral. The hashtags #LioEyesALie and #BotScandal started trending on Aura. The public backlash was savage. The couple who had been praised for their authenticity were now exposed as frauds. Their comment sections became a dumpster fire of mockery and outrage. Their big-name sponsors, the ones who had flocked to them months ago, began to pull out, citing morals clauses in their contracts. A teeth-whitening brand, a fast fashion label, a meal kit delivery service, all publicly severed ties. The financial pressure mounted. The glass-walled Hollywood house disappeared from their posts, replaced by a generic-looking apartment. Their fights, once staged for drama, were now apparently real. Paparazzi, who now smelled blood in the water, caught them arguing in a parking lot. The photos were raw and ugly, a world away from their carefully filtered aura posts. Luca looked stressed and haggard. Chloe looked furious. One evening, Kate was reviewing a proposal for a new Aura feature, a tool to help connect users with mental health resources, when a notification popped up on her work screen. It was an internal alert from the customer service department. Subject: urgent, escalated inquiry from high-profile user. Kate opened the email. It was a long, rambling, furious message from Chloe Vance. She was demanding to speak to the new owner of Aura. She claimed her account had been shadow banned and that the company was deliberately sabotaging her career. She threatened legal action, public exposure, and every other form of retribution she could think of. "My fiancé, Luca Reynolds, is a celebrated designer," she wrote, "and we have been loyal champions of your platform. This unprofessional treatment is unacceptable. We demand a meeting with the CEO of North Star Holdings to discuss a path forward." Kate leaned back in her chair. Her baby kicked a gentle but firm reminder. A path forward. They wanted a path forward. It was time. She forwarded the email to Marcus Thorne. Her instructions were simple. "Arrange the meeting. My boardroom. Next Tuesday." The headquarters of North Star Holdings, and by extension Aura, was not the trendy open-plan loft one might expect from a tech company. On Kate's instruction, Marcus had leased the top floor of a stark, imposing skyscraper in the heart of San Francisco's financial district. The aesthetic was deliberate, old money, quiet power, and impenetrable steel. The boardroom was Kate's stage. It was a vast, intimidating space, dominated by a long, dark mahogany table. One wall was a floor-to-ceiling window, offering a panoramic, godlike view of the city and the bay. The other walls were bare, save for a single, massive screen, currently dark. Kate arrived an hour early. She was now nearly 9 months pregnant, and she moved with a slow, deliberate grace. She wore a simple, elegant black maternity dress. No power suit, no armor. Her presence was her power. She stood by the window looking down at the traffic crawling below, feeling the baby move within her. She was calm. The chaotic emotions of the past few months had been distilled into a single purpose. This was not about revenge. It was about closing a loop, about demonstrating a fact that real life, with all its pain and messiness, would always triumph over a curated fantasy. Marcus met her in the boardroom. He looked at her, his expression a mixture of admiration and concern. "Are you sure you want to do this face-to-face, Kate? I can handle it." "I'm sure," she said, her voice soft but firm. "This is my story. I'm going to be the one to write the ending." At precisely 10 a.m. the door opened. A junior executive showed in Chloe Vance and Luca Reynolds. The sight of them in the flesh was jarring. They were smaller somehow than their digital avatars. Chloe was dressed in a tight, expensive-looking blazer, her face a mask of professionally applied makeup, but there were dark circles under her eyes. She radiated a tense, defiant energy. Luca was a ghost. His trendy clothes hung on a frame that had lost weight. His charming smile was gone, replaced by a haggard, anxious expression. He avoided looking around the room, his eyes fixed on the floor. Then he saw Kate standing by the window. His face went white. He stopped dead, his mouth falling open slightly. He looked from her to her swollen belly, then back to her face. The color drained from his cheeks. Recognition, shock, and a dawning, sickening horror played out across his features. Chloe, who had been striding towards the head of the table as if to claim it, noticed Luca's paralysis. "What is it?" she snapped, irritated. Then she followed his gaze. Her reaction was different. There was no horror, only pure, unadulterated confusion, quickly followed by a flash of contempt. "Kate, what the hell are you doing here? Are you the secretary?" Kate didn't answer. She simply walked towards the head of the table, the seat Chloe had been about to take, and sat down. Marcus took the seat at her right. "Chloe." "Luca," Kate said, her voice echoing slightly in the vast, silent room. "Thank you for coming. Please have a seat." Luca stumbled into a chair, his eyes still locked on Kate's face. Chloe remained standing, her arms crossed. "I don't understand. We're here to see the CEO of North Star Holdings." "What is this?" "You are," Kate said calmly. "I am the sole owner and CEO of North Star Holdings. I acquired Elysian Labs 3 months ago. Welcome to my company." The silence that followed was absolute. Chloe's jaw tightened, her perfectly glossed lips pressed into a thin line. The contempt in her eyes was replaced by a look of disbelief and then a flicker of fear. Luca looked like he was going to be physically sick. He finally tore his gaze away from Kate and stared at the polished surface of the table as if it were a life raft. "You—" Chloe finally spat out a harsh, incredulous laugh, escaping her. "You bought Aura how?" "My grandmother was a very wise woman," Kate said simply. She gestured to the large screen on the wall. "But we're not here to discuss my finances. We're here to discuss yours." With a tap on her tablet, the screen flickered to life. It displayed Aura's master dashboard. It was a sea of data charts and graphs. To Luca and Chloe, it would have been incomprehensible. But Kate knew it was the story of their lives. "Let's talk about your brand," Kate began, her voice taking on the crisp, analytical tone of her old job. "This graph shows your engagement metrics over the past year." A jagged line appeared on the screen. It shot up dramatically around the time Luca had left her, then plummeted 3 months ago. "This spike," she said, pointing a laser from her tablet, "is where the Elysian Labs algorithm was manually coded to give your accounts Tier 1 priority. Your fame wasn't earned, it was assigned." She switched to another screen, showing a world map covered in red dots. "And this is your follower base, or what's left of it. As you can see, 47% of your followers are bots originating from click farms in Dhaka and Manila purchased on—" She paused, looking at her notes. "The 17th of last month, a direct violation of our terms of service." She brought up their most recent posts. "Your content's performance when stripped of artificial priority and fake followers is in the bottom percentile of our user base. To be blunt, your brand is worthless." Chloe was shaking her head, her face pale beneath her tan. "You did this. You sabotaged us." "No," Kate said, her voice devoid of malice. It was the voice of pure fact. "I didn't sabotage you. I restored neutrality. I took away your cheat codes. I created a level playing field, and on it you failed. Because what you built was never real. It was a fantasy propped up by a system I now control." Finally, Luca spoke, his voice a hoarse whisper. "Kate, I didn't know." Kate turned her full attention to him for the first time. She looked at him, the father of her child, the man who had shattered her world with a text message. There was no hatred in her eyes, only a profound, weary pity. "You didn't know," she repeated softly. "You didn't know that leaving your pregnant wife for a woman you'd only just met was wrong. You didn't know that building a new life on a foundation of lies and curated photos might be unsustainable. I'm sorry." He choked out, tears welling in his eyes. "Ames, I am so sorry. I was lost. I made a terrible mistake. Yes, you did, Kate agreed. And now you have to live with it. She turned her gaze back to Chloe, who was now staring at her with pure, venomous hatred. So what now? Chloe demanded. Are you going to delete our accounts? Is that what this is all about? Petty revenge. Kate almost smiled. It was so much bigger than that. Deleting you would be a waste of server space, she said coolly. Your accounts will remain active. You are free to post whatever you like. But you will be subject to the same algorithm as every other user. You will have to find out for the first time if anyone is actually interested in what you have to say. She stood up, her movement commanding the room. But this meeting isn't just about you. It's about the future of this platform. Aura became a tool for envy and illusion, and I am changing that. The screen behind her changed again. It now showed mock-ups of a new app interface. It was cleaner, warmer. The focus was on community, on connection, on authenticity. I am officially announcing the Aura Authenticity Initiative. We are partnering with the National Center for Mental Health to integrate resources into the app. We are launching a creator fund, the Eleanor Reed Grant, to provide capital to small independent artists and storytellers who are focused on genuine, unfiltered content. 10% of all future profits from this company will be donated to charities supporting single mothers and their children. She looked directly at Luca, her voice unwavering. This platform will no longer be a celebration of the fantasies people escape to. It will be a celebration of the real lives they actually lead. The messy ones, the hard ones, the beautiful, authentic ones. She had taken their weapon, the engine of their fame, and her pain, and she had reforged it into a shield for people like her. The meeting is over, Kate said. The executive assistant will validate your parking. Chloe was speechless, her rage rendering her mute. Luca just sat there broken. As a security guard escorted them out of the boardroom, Luca looked back one last time, his face a mask of regret and awe. He wasn't looking at his ex-wife. He was looking at a force of nature he had foolishly underestimated. When they were gone, Marcus turned to Kate. That, he said, was the most brutal and elegant takedown I have ever witnessed. Kate walked back to the window, placing a hand on her belly. She watched two tiny figures get into a cab far below. She didn't feel a rush of victory or a thrill of revenge. She just felt peaceful. The loop was closed. The story was hers again. 2 weeks later, Kate gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Eleanor. In the end, this was never a story about getting even. It was a story about getting whole. Kate didn't just buy an app. She bought back her own narrative. She took the very tool that was used to discard her and transformed it into a platform for authenticity and a force for good, building a legacy for her daughter on the foundations of her own resilience. Luca and Chloe learned the hard way that a life built on filters is bound to fade, while a life built on truth, however difficult, is the only one that lasts. What do you think? Was Kate's move an act of brilliant revenge or a masterclass in business? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you were moved by this story of strength and transformation, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more real-life stories of incredible people.